Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. All right, looks like we are good to go. People are starting to trickle in.
Okay.
Um, Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. This is the final public workshop on the Wingfield and Barbara Bennett Master Plan. My name is Karina Mercier. I am with the City of Reno Parks and Recreation Department, and I'm here to introduce you to our team that has been working on this project for the past couple of years. It's been a process, so um, yeah, we can get started.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. First of all, Karina, do you want to introduce our team or would you like me to?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you everyone for your time and for being here today. Like I said, my name is Karina Mercier. I'm the project manager and park planner for City of Reno Parks. Joining us today, we have Barb Santner. She is with Stantec Consulting. They are the firm that we contracted for this master plan, and they are also working on another master plan that's taking place concurrently for Paradise Park. And she's been a great help. And as part of her team, we have Jack Hawkins with Hawkins Architecture. Also with Jack, we have Tony Petoni. So they are architects and they're specializing in the amphitheater portion for Wingfield Park. And then we also have joining us a little bit later, Gary Lacey. He was involved in the initial creation of the Whitewater Park and design. So very valuable information from him. Barb, did I miss anyone?
Well, we also have on here Dalton Lavoie. He's our another landscape architect that's been our lead designer with Stantec, and has also been instrumental in working on the park design for our team. That's our team. So today the goal is to present the preferred master plan. We have a few things to go through on our agenda to go through kind of a recap of the vision, a bit of a recap of the last public meeting, which was about a year ago in November of 2023, and that was followed by an online survey. And those were done to go through the three concept plans that we had developed. And then we want to show you the preferred plan for Wingfield Park, the Whitewater Park, Barbara Bennett Park. We'll have a little time for questions and discussion. And we'd kind of like you to hold your questions until that time. You can then like raise your hand in the chat and Karina can turn on your mic to allow you to speak. And then we do have a live poll to ask a few questions about your preferences on the master plans that we're going to show, and then a bit of an overview of what our timeline is moving forward. So here is a bit of a vision, and this is some kind of big picture vision that we brought over from the Reno Parks Recreation and Open Space Master Plan that was adopted about a year ago. And I wanted to include this just to kind of emphasize why we think this park is really important and why we're proposing some of the amenities and changes that we have. So goal number 6 in the master plan was uh, to make the river corridor a regional destination and to restore and enhance the Truckee River corridor and other strategic undeveloped regional projects. That was emphasized by all of our city council people in our master plan update, as they felt the Truckee River was kind of the jewel of the Truckee Meadows, and it was really important to improve a lot of our existing amenities and make new ones. Another recommendation was to program, develop, and activate the City of Reno Truckee River corridor and downtown public spaces to support the newly envisioned park system. So that was just another top recommendation in the master plan. And then I wanted to include this quote because I thought it really was great and it kind of resonated with me. Um, and the quote is, Wingfield Park is the nucleus of our community and the heart of our town. And this was just a off the cuff remark made by Beth McMillan, who's the executive director of our town, when Jack and I were meeting with her last summer to talk about how the park is used for special events. So as we talk about the parks, we have them kind of split up into three areas. We're going to talk about Wingfield Park, which is in the purple, uh, represented in the purple here. And then the Whitewater Park, which is actually part of Wingfield Park, but we've kind of separated it for purposes of presenting the amenities. And then Barbara Bennett Park, which is on the south side of the South Channel here. So to do a bit of a recap on the parks, I wanted to talk a little bit or just remind everyone of what was involved in Concept A. So Concept A was a plan that kept the existing amphitheater in the existing location and regraded the turf a bit to have everybody able to look at the amphitheater in kind of one graded area, replace a bunch of sidewalks with new vehicular rated sidewalks on both sides of the park, added some picnic nodes, added a pedestrian bridge to connect Wingfield to Barbara Bennett, and had the same alignment of the street and parking along the river, but we added a pedestrian walkway and trees. And then we kept the two basketball courts, kept two tennis courts, and made this into pickleball courts, and kind of shifted the playground and added shade structures over in this area. So that was the gist of Plan A. In all three of the concepts, we have proposed replacing all of the existing lighting because it's pretty dated, and adding security cameras that would tie into the City of Reno's IT system so that the activities could be more easily monitored. And then we also propose limbing up the trees so that it's more easy to see into the parks, and actually, again, kind of monitor the activity. And also we propose removing the walls that are currently here at Wingfield again, so that it's more easy to see the activity in those in the park. And there was also a proposal for a surf park or a surf wave in this location, and then improved fish passage, as well as adding a pedestrian walkway at the toe of the flood wall here, and also add a pedestrian bridge and a a floodable access way in this area to the southeast corner of the Sierra Street Bridge. So those were the big items in Concept A presented last year. So in Concept B, we propose leaving the amphitheater in the same location, but replacing the structure with a new structure that would really be a shade structure on some supports, and not have the solid walls in the background. But the other aspects of the park were essentially the same as in Concept A for Wingfield. And the other aspects of the river improvements were also the same as in Concept A. But in Concept B, this driveway and circulation is pulled back a bit from the river and having a larger pedestrian walkway feature. We had one basketball court, and then in this area we had a combined one basketball or one tennis court and three pickleball courts, and shifted the playground up in this area closer to the roadway. I neglected to mention also that we were in both A and B, we proposed replacing the restroom and moving it a bit east. In another thing in A or B, in this area, we would have a pad for a portable green room restroom. Concept C, uh, had a bigger change in both parks. So in concept C, we proposed removing the existing amphitheater and moving it down to the east side of the park and replacing it with a shade type of structure. And then having this area near Arlington Avenue be used for food trucks and vendors and the portable restrooms. And the biggest reason to propose this is because the natural grade from Arlington Avenue East falls in this direction. So by relocating the amphitheater, this can just be graded in a natural fashion, looking down at the new amphitheater. And also, this provides really good natural flow of pedestrians from Arlington Avenue through the food truck area and restroom area down to the amphitheater. In Barbara Bennett Park, sorry about that, we proposed a realignment of the roadway and parking, and it would still oppose Island Avenue here, but it would move away from the river and allow more space along the river to really enjoy the river and have open space. So what that would look like is that the existing flood wall would be removed and this would be terraced back with boulders, just like all these other edges are terraced back when the Whitewater Park was built. And it would afford a lot of new green space and access to the river on the South Channel. We also still have the pedestrian bridge connecting to Wingfield. We had one basketball court and a dog park in this location. And in this early version, or in the concept C we presented last year, we had a bit more parking than what we have now, and we propose it as a one-way circulation with a turnaround going back out to Island Avenue. So we presented those concepts last year. And then we had a survey. So again, the public meeting where we presented those comments or those concepts was November 16th, 2023. And that was followed by an online survey, which was our second one. That was held this spring from March 4th to April 1st. And here were the results of the survey. So for Wingfield, about half of the people, a little more than half, kind of preferred A, which was basically keeping the amphitheater where it is. And then it was about split between B and C being the biggest change of moving the amphitheater to the east. For Barbara Bennett Park, there was about half of the people who preferred the park pretty much the way it is. And then B and C had maybe a little bit of a lower preference for shifting the roadway internally and making it a dead end, or excuse me, a one-way dead end with a turnaround. And then on the Whitewater Park, we really didn't propose any differences in A, B, or C, so there was pretty good agreement about that. I wanted to add too that at the actual public meeting, the sentiment on C was higher. I think people definitely preferred C for moving the amphitheater and also C for Barbara Bennett Park and realigning the road. So based on that feedback and also some additional stakeholder input, we had further input from the Parks and Recreation and Public Works departments about the results of the survey and the public meeting. And so the preferred plan represents elements of all that feedback. We did have additional meetings with stakeholders that are the special event users of the parks and also with some of the whitewater users. So I wanted to mention that for security and safety, we've again kept the lighting and camera lighting replacement in the park in this preferred plan. So again, what we're proposing is replacing all the existing pedestrian lighting and then adding security cameras tied to the city IT system to monitor activity. For trees, again, we'd limb up all the existing trees so that there are views into the parks. And then on new trees, we would choose trees that naturally have a higher branching pattern so that again, views into the park would allow for monitoring. And then we would remove some of the items that obstruct the views, like those walls at the existing amphitheater and um, that sort of thing. And then the big idea too is to just improve the vehicular circulation, allowing for better patrolling of the parks. So this is the preferred plan for all three areas. I know it's kind of small, so we're going to split that discussion up into three parts. And I'm trying to see Jake. Okay, I want to also introduce Jake Kabler. He is on the same team as Gary Lacey. He's our whitewater designer. And Jake, do you know if Gary's on the call or going to be? You're on mute.
Hey, sorry about that. No, no, you're all stuck with me tonight.
Okay,
So
that's
I'll be
fine.
happy to, yeah, I'll be happy to stand in
Okay,
for him.
that's great. Okay, well, so again, this is the preferred plan that we've come up with, and I'll kind of launch into explaining the aspects of the three areas. So on Wingfield Park, um, we have once again shown the amphitheater structure placed on the east side of the park with a shade structure on a slightly raised concrete pad. The walls would be removed that were here so that there's going to be a little more open viewing of this from the street. And it would be an upgraded type of structure that could accommodate aerial silks and other activities. And there would be no columns that would block your view of the stage. And also, Tony and or Jack will talk about this in more detail, but I'm just going to give you the big picture. Um, Again, we're talking about improving the pedestrian flow from Arlington Avenue through this area, which would be the food truck and vendor area, and also have the portable restrooms during a festival and flowing down to the seating areas of the park. Um, this is these elements are shade pavilions, and this creates kind of a nice entry pavilion into the park with these shade structures. This area would also have a kind of a bosque of shade trees. And when there is not a special event, this could have
I'm sorry.
picnic tables and that sort of thing.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I wasn't seeing your cursor, but I see it now.
Oh,
So,
okay. Sorry. Yeah, I was looking at the wrong one. Yeah, so this is the food truck area. And again, when there is not a festival going on, these would be picnic tables. But you can see how the pedestrian flow would be kind of a more natural progression from the sidewalks on Arlington Avenue down these generous walkways to the new amphitheater. And then these are the entry pavilion shade structures. And the design of them is complementary for this new shade structure as well as a couple of the other elements. Um, we're also showing that this would be regraded again, and so that since the natural grade falls from west to east, these would be regraded into some kind of level turf terraces with some short granite seat walls here and here and here. Um, so that would again provide some really nice seating. And these pathways would be vehicular rated paving so that the special event users can drop off their equipment really easily back here and circulate around. There would be a portable structure that would have a green room and a restroom behind the stage, and that could be removed when it's not festival season. So, for example, in the winter. And then this would be a portable storage unit that could be used for performers to store their instruments and other elements that are needed during special event season. This element is a tree climber that we are suggesting could be used from a salvage tree. So that's kind of the east side of Wingfield. On the west side, we have the same three ADA or accessible picnic tables that were shown. This one has a path to it. This one is accessible on a path. These are shown just in the grass. And then this is a new shade canopy over this existing hardscape area, which is currently mostly used by vendors during special events. And then there's another new element across the river, which is the observation tower that Jack and Tony can talk about as well. Did I miss anything, Dalton? I'm going to ask you that before I move on.
Nope, I think that was a good summary.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some of the amenities I'm just going to talk about briefly, and then I've got a couple sketches of the amphitheater that Jack and Tony can talk about. Again, here's a concept of what the new amphitheater would look like, looking kind of south or looking easterly. This is an example of the terraces with turf. And here's an example of the tree climber, the food truck area beneath shade trees, some additional trees around the perimeter of the park, and then, a type of custom shade structure that would be placed at that existing hardscape area on the west side of the island. So Jack and or Tony, I don't know if you would like to talk a little more about more of the details of the amphitheater.
Thanks, Barb. I'll kind of allude and talk in a little bit more detail about kind of the proposal for the Wingfield Park Amphitheater area. You've touched on quite a few of the details. I'll maybe just discuss a few other details. So we have kind of two sketches that we'll show you here that we developed that kind of visualize the preferred or proposed design. So as Barb alluded to earlier, we're proposing to basically rotate the orientation of the amphitheater about 180 degrees. There's several, I think, pretty good reasons for doing so. The current amphitheater, of course, spectators face the pavilion or the stage kind of facing west. And of course, the majority of events occur usually later in the afternoon and the evening when the sun is beginning to set in the west. And so there's obviously issues with sun and glare and difficulties for spectators viewing the stage when they're facing into the sun. So this option, I think, solves that issue with rotating the amphitheater so that it faces east. That way, spectators are not looking into the sun, which is a great reason, motivation for rotating that. Also, as Barb alluded to earlier, also allows for a more optimal entrance into the amphitheater rather than entering the amphitheater from the sides or the front of the stage, which can be somewhat distracting for performers and spectators as well. This allows spectators to enter the amphitheater from Arlington Avenue through the back of the amphitheater. So there's less distraction, a little bit easier entrance into the amphitheater, into the seating. Also, as Barb mentioned, the natural grade of the island and Wingfield Park is from the west to the east. So by locating the stage and the pavilion at the east end of the park, that'll allow us to basically use the natural grade from west to east to grade the seating in the amphitheater and then locate the stage and the pavilion at the low point so that visibility of the stage will be optimized. Also, if you notice on the back, I don't know, Barb, if you can switch back to the site plan, but the island and the east end of the island kind of has a natural taper towards the stage. So this allows us to focus even a little bit better visually onto the stage from all parts of the amphitheater. So there's kind of optimal viewing from everywhere in the amphitheater, kind of focused on the stage. And then, of course, the backdrop of that stage would be the beautiful Truckee River as it kind of converges from these two forks. So kind of a beautiful visual option beyond the amphitheater as well. So, sorry, if you don't mind going back to that sketch that we were on previously.
Sure.
So kind of what we're proposing for the bench seating or the platforms for the amphitheater would be kind of natural granite platforms or benches that would be tapered and blended into the kind of the natural grading of the park. It would kind of create a kind of a beautiful, natural, maybe more organic aesthetic for the amphitheater. And then as Barb mentioned previously, when the amphitheater is not being used for events, it would kind of create a more natural kind of park effect, kind of a lush turf area, more typical of a park rather than an amphitheater. So when not in use for events, it would serve very well as a park as well. You can see in this sketch, the kind of the lighter path that wraps from Arlington down around the back side of the pavilion and then around to the north and back to Arlington. This would be kind of a perimeter traffic rated permeable paver path for vehicles. So obviously with the pavilion and the stage being located at the east end of the park, we would have to provide access for vehicles to deliver and unload instruments, props, lighting, equipment and gear, etc. And so this proposed pathway, we're kind of proposing like a permeable paver system for that road. And that would also allow when events are not occurring for that path to function as a pedestrian path, a more natural kind of a path that would wrap around the back of the pavilion. Also, as Barbara mentioned earlier, at the back or the west end of the amphitheater, there'd be a large paved area with canopy trees for shading. You can kind of see that on the left side of the sketch where Barb's pointer is. So this would be where the food truck area would be located. So our thoughts were to create kind of a layout or a organization pattern for the large trees to be planted such that food trucks could be able to pull into that paving area under the shade of the trees and function as a food source, also for vendors as well. Would provide a rolled curb along Arlington Avenue so that they could pull directly from Arlington Avenue into that paver area. And then, as I mentioned, the shade trees would kind of be spaced to allow for a efficient food truck layout. And then during times when events were not being held, that same plaza area would function as a beautiful kind of tree covered shaded plaza for picnic tables and those kind of functions. Also, you can kind of see on the left side of that sketch, we're showing 5 new entry or proposing 5 new entry or shade canopies. And these would be kind of still and tensile shade structures that would be kind of a common design concept throughout the entire park. So kind of a similar design aesthetic for the pavilion that would cover the stage area, and then also in Barbara Bennett Park for many of the structures and shade structures over there. So these kind of entry shade canopies would kind of provide a natural boundary at the west side of the amphitheater to kind of help define that perimeter of the amphitheater. They would also function to direct spectator traffic as they enter the amphitheater from the west side, and of course provide shade from that western sun in the late afternoon and evening, so spectators towards the back of the amphitheater. So then the pavilion, which you can kind of see to the right side of this sketch, what we're proposing there would be approximately an 85 by 45 foot concrete raised stage. And as you can kind of see on that sketch, we're kind of proposing to slope or batter the front and the sides of the concrete stage. They would kind of taper into the landscape, and there's several reasons for that. One reason is, with the frequent flooding of the park, this would permit floodwaters to flow around the sides, and in heavy floods to flow even over the top of the stage area without creating havoc or destruction of a stage. So this would kind of help to direct those floodwaters around the stage or over it if necessary. The stage would be approximately 30 inches above finished grade, adjacent to the stage. That will allow us to or not have the requirement of guardrails around the stage. And then also, as Barbara mentioned earlier, there would be 4 shipping containers that would be utilized for restrooms, storage for stage equipment, and then 2 of the shipping containers would be combined to create what would be a mobile green room. These shipping containers would be city-owned. They could be transported off-site during non-performance months very easily, utilizing the paved permeable paver system that would wrap around the amphitheater and back up to Arlington Avenue. So those will be city-owned and could be easily moved during months when there were no performances, and then brought back during those performance months. The canopy that you see over the stage, in fact, Barb, if you go to I think it's the next slide where we have the sketch.
Okay. Oops.
Maybe it's before that one. There we go. So this is kind of a view from the stage looking towards Arlington Avenue. You can see the observation tower beyond that Jack will discuss here shortly. But the canopy would consist of steel, kind of slender steel columns or masts that would be erected to support the tensile fabric shade structure that would be erected over the stage. It would also be a steel space frame structure, and that's what you kind of see in this sketch at the front of the stage. And this would be utilized for suspending lighting, the sound system, curtains, and those type of things. There would be a landscaped area directly in front of the stage that we're proposing that would provide kind of a natural barrier to the performers on the stage. And then directly in front of that, or to the west of that, would be kind of a small plaza or paver area that would be utilized for dancing area just directly in front of the stage. And as I mentioned earlier, there'd be this 10-foot wide access path, paver path that would extend behind the pavilion to service the amphitheater and all the stage area. So that's kind of the proposed design or conceptual design for that part of Wingfield Park. So I think we'll let Jack talk about this vision that we have for the observation tower.
Before you go on to that, I wanted to mention, because it had been brought up that this I believe is this bar, or this is capable of also holding like a drop down shade, so that in the late afternoon and when it's really sunny before performances happen and the sun sets, that instruments can be shaded a bit from the western sun. And
yes, that would be basically a still space frame structure. So it would be designed to support all those type of functions. The sound system would be mounted attached to that space frame, as well as possibility of curtains or drapes, just as you mentioned, to shade the stage in the late afternoon before performances. So yeah, I would definitely be capable of that.
all right, so Jack can talk about the observation tower. And Jack, at one point, I've got the video kind of queued up. So let me know when you want me to turn that on. And you're on mute, by the way. There you go.
Old man in technology. All right, I'm Jack on Robitussin.
Oh.
I'm fighting off a cold for the participants that are zoomed in. I'm not at my best, but I'll try. I've been in Reno for 35 years, practicing architecture. This was a fun opportunity to work with Stantec and Barb and Dalton and Tony. Tony and I worked together several years ago, and I've been to many events at Wingfield, seen a lot of concerts there. It's got kind of a special part or special place, I guess, in my heart. And I feel like park's kind of, a little bit long in the tooth, kind of like me. And so it was fun to work on something to give it a whole fresh aesthetic and functions, and just a real pleasure to work on. The one thing that I think Barb said it, and I think Tony reiterated it, but I'll say it again, the amphitheater part, the part that excites me, other than just getting a new venue, a proper venue for musicians and artists to perform, is the fact that it would be, when it's not in use as an amphitheater, we feel like it would be a really nice park-like setting with these big platforms of grass sort of stepping down to the river, opening the river back up to people in the park. And I just think it'll be a real change, and people will be excited to perform at Wingfield. I'm going to talk specifically about, we're calling it the Wingfield Observation Tower. A couple of the council members, when this project came up, we were directed to have something unique and special that would maybe encourage people to come to Reno, or when they come to Reno, something specific that would draw them downtown and draw them to Wingfield Park. And one of the inspirations for this tower, if any of you have been to the DeYoung Museum in San Francisco, it's in the middle of Golden Gate Park. They have a 10-story admin building, administration part of the museum, that goes up. Anybody can do it for free. You can just walk in, go up to the top of this 10-story platform. When you get off the elevator, or if you take the stairs, but if you get off the elevator, you have a 360-degree view of San Francisco. It's probably one of the best views in San Francisco, and you immediately figure out where you're at within the city. You can see Golden Gate Bridge, you can see Marin Headlands, you can see Golden Gate Park, you can see downtown, you can see Alcatraz. You just automatically, as soon as you get up vertically, you have a sense of where you're at within that geographic region. So we took that as inspiration for, if you have family from out of town and they come to Reno and you're like, well, what do you need to take them to see? Well, obviously you take them to Lake Tahoe, maybe Virginia City, maybe out to the east to the desert, west to the mountains. But what do you take them to downtown, other than, maybe they want to gamble a little bit? But we thought it'd be fun to have something that would draw people to downtown Reno. And so the concept of a tower emerged, and it would be a destination tower. It would be a place where you would want to take people down to the park and go, hey, let's go up the tower. We're here. You can either take an elevator up or you can take the stairs. And when you come out of the tower, or when you come off the elevator or off the stairs, you walk out on a long arm of this tower, and it basically puts you right over the Truckee River, and it'd just be a glass cube. So, and you're on access with Mount Rose. Mount Rose proper is a 10,800 foot peak that we can all see from Reno. Has a special place in my heart for both hiking and backcountry skiing. I just love seeing it. And so this arm immediately is, or when you when you walk towards the end of the arm of this tower, you're walking right towards the view of Mount Rose. If you look, you'd also then be able to look up the river, down the river, watch kayakers, watch hopefully surfers. Once Gary redoes the river, you can watch people fishing. I mean, it just would be a really beautiful place to be. It would also orient a visitor so they immediately grasp how Reno sits in a valley. They could see the East Hills, the Virginia Highlands to the east, the Sierras to the west. They could see downtown. They see how the Truckee River carves through downtown, and you immediately grasp where you're at in, how Reno sits in this northern Nevada geography, which I think is pretty unique and pretty special. There's some amenities that we included in this facility. If you take the stairs and you spiral up this thing, we would try to do a really cool display of sort of the natural history of the area and some interesting history of Reno itself, and maybe some interesting history of the Truckee River and how it has sort of helped Reno to develop. And that's a whole kind of specialty museum format that I'm not great at, but we could get the right consultant to put that together. The top of the tower is a light sculpture, kind of again, sort of an ode to Burning Man. There's a very famous light sculptor that got his start at Burning Man, and it would be wonderful to have him actually do a light sculpture at the top of this tower. During normal operating hours, it would just be a sculpture, but it could also advertise events for the city, for Wingfield. If Mark Sexton and the Sextones are playing in Wingfield, you could use it as a billboard. It also becomes sort of a landmark, so that when you see that tower, you see that light sculpture, you know where you're at in relationship to downtown and the river. So it's kind of almost a pathfinder. The other features would be, we'd like to see this be as energy neutral as possible. We were going to try to put in about a 10,000 kilowatt solar voltaic system, and then also try to figure out how to do a passive cooling system using the natural ventilation of the tower and maybe some evaporative cooling elements to cool it. And then kind of a fun feature would be on the east side of the tower, we would do a climbing wall, be about 75, 80 feet tall. And that could be rented out to a vendor, or if the city wanted to run it, and then climbers could go up and down the tower. While they're climbing, they look to their left, and they would see the river as well as Mount Rose and the Sierras off to the southwest. Could be really fun. Could be fun for kids and adults too. And then the whole thing could be possibly a rental venue for the city. People could rent it out for weddings, photograph parties in general. Be a great place to stand up there and have a cocktail and look out over the city of Reno and the Truckee River. And finally, the tower would be ADA compliant and secure from vandalism and suicide, which is always a concern with anytime you're climbing a tower and getting up above fall distance. And that's the presentation for the tower. It's fairly ambitious, but we think it could be something really fun for the city of Reno, and just a great amenity to the city, and particularly Wingfield, which is just a very special park. Uh-oh. What happened?
Jack, right now the video is showing. Actually, I'm not sure if your screen is showing it.
Oh, good. Okay, they're running the video. Great. No, I don't have it.
Right now, this video is showing a lot of the great views that Jack had mentioned. Once you get out to the end of the tower, looking down at the Truckee River, out to the Sierras, and this is a night view now. Tony, if you wanted to narrate this too, I wouldn't stop you. But I'm just trying to kind of emphasize a lot of what Jack had been talking about in his presentation.
Basically, the materials would be rusted Corten steel and concrete, or the two, and glass are the three major materials. And I didn't mention, it does sit in a little pocket park right at the corner of First and Arlington.
Barb, I think you're muted if you're talking.
It is on Fulton Corner, right on the northeast corner of the bridge. It's actually, I guess, the southeast corner of First Street and Arlington, but that's where the tower, this proposed location would be for the tower. Anything else you want to add on the tower? Jack or Tony?
I think that's all for me. Tony, do you want to add anything?
No, I just think it'd be an incredibly beautiful, I mean, like you mentioned, a landmark for Reno City and for downtown Reno.
Yeah.
Place that would draw people from, I mean, it's similar to, I mean, when Jack and I were discussing this, we mentioned some of the famous landmarks around the country, around the world, you know, the Bean in Chicago. It would become one of those kind of iconic landmarks for downtown Reno, for Reno City, that would draw people and just be an incredible feature for that part of Reno, and located right on the Truckee River. I mean, it'd be an incredible, I think, amenity to the city. So it has a lot of potential, I think.
All right. Well, thanks for all that information and detail. So the next aspect of the preferred plan that we want to explain is the Whitewater Park improvements. And Jake, are you okay going through these?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Be happy to. And this is really pretty similar to what's been shown before for those of you who've been keeping an eye on this, but sort of working from upstream to downstream on that north channel. The first thing you see is that reconstructed drop two. That's actually part of Arlington Bridge. I think we're really just showing it here for reference more than anything else. So that will be happening next summer already. And then moving downstream of the bridge, hole 3, we're proposing there to remove some of that cobble, clean it out, really restore it as a world-class play boating location. It's degraded a bit over the years, but we can definitely bring that back with a little bit of attention. And then moving downstream, what we've talked about before, here is this hole 5 getting turned into a standing shortboard surfing wave. We've put a few of these in places across the country, and we've seen them not just be regional attractions, but national and international attractions for the cities that have them. You'll see the island between the ditch and the Truckee River downstream of the park. We're showing an access path. So there at letter L, the furthest right, yeah, that that takeout just by the eddy is going to be reconstructed as part of the Sierra Street Bridge. And rather than coming down on the west side of the bridge, it'll be coming down from the east on an ADA compliant trail. And so our proposal here is to extend that with an ADA compliant trail all the way across that island and back into Wingfield Park. It'll just be a low, flood-proof, floodable trail coming straight through that island. So that will provide an accessible and grade separated route across Sierra Street, which is great because we're not getting that as part of the bridge.
All right. And then while we're looking at this slide, I just wanted to point out a couple other things. Again, we've proposed this new pedestrian bridge to connect the west island of Wingfield to Barbara Bennett. And we really think that would improve obviously would improve the connectivity between the parks and, you know, really allow for a great circulation between the two parks. And improve the use of Barbara Bennett most likely. We're also showing on this existing pedestrian bridge, we've kind of labeled it as an optional possible removal of that bridge. And the reason for that is that this whole corner is going to be improved, as well as all the sidewalk along Arlington Avenue. It's a super short travel distance between here to the corner, and there could be quite a bit of benefit to removing this. Currently, there's a really big concrete structure that is actually the ramp going from the top of the bridge down to the level ground, and that really obstructs your view of the south branch of the river. So we're showing that as an option in the future when you know, park improvements are nailed down. Here are some of the amenities that Jake's group provided to show examples of what some of these things would look like. Here's an example of the surf wave with a couple surfers actually in action. And then this is an example of kind of a low flow floodable trail. That would be a hard surface trail, really close, really positioned in that island. And then here's what you can see today with all the terrace boulders. So that new edge of Barbara Bennett Park, the existing edge is actually here where you can see the wall. And what we're proposing is to take this down and lay that slope back, and it would look more like this on the Barbara Bennett side as well. So now we're at the point to show you some of the improvements for the Barbara Bennett Park. So again, the big idea is to realign the road and parking so that it's more centrally located within the park and open up this whole area that is really adjacent to the river. Terrace this bank back with using this terrace boulder so that it is similar to all these other nicely done edges at Wingfield Park. We're showing replacing the current restroom with a Portland Loo style restrooms, which are the ones that are now being used down on the river. They allow one person in them, and you can kind of see underneath so that there's less opportunity for undesirable activity, I would say, in those restrooms. So we're proposing 2 of those. And then this would be the accessible parking for those restrooms in diagonal parking. But this circulation would be one way coming in, and then it would be one way going out, just like it is now. So that's kind of wasn't a modification from our concept C, in that we're basically leaving the path and the circulation route the same, but just moving this internally. This area is for people to access this ramp. This is actually a ramp that's going to be modified with the Arlington Avenue Bridges project, where it's going to be widened so vehicles can get down into the river. So people unloading boats and such can bring their boats down in this area too. And then this is also ADA accessible. Here's a location of that new proposed pedestrian bridge. This is proposed to be a group picnic shelter. This is proposed to be a new playground, and put kind of more in a highly visible area so that it feels safe for families to use. And then we've got quite a bit of generous open space and along the river here, as well as this area, which has a lot of existing nice canopy trees. This area is showing a full-size basketball court, but then 2 half courts, so that it still is allowing for basically the same amount of play of basketball that is there today, which is very popular. We're showing a dog park in this area for small dogs and slightly larger dogs, and then keeping 1 tennis court here at the west end of the park. We really think that moving this roadway inside the park will make patrolling the park a lot easier, in addition to really opening up the riverside of the park. And this can also be striped for pickleball as well. And I did want to add that in the surveys, the desire to keep a tennis court in the park were very mixed. Some folks thought that it just wasn't, they're just not being used enough, and others were more in favor of keeping a tennis court. Dalton, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think that was a good summary.
Yeah, I do.
There's a lot of modifications we made, keeping some of the stronger elements that the community preferred out of each A, B, and C. The big move with the roadway to open up the river and really kind of do that mirror treatment of the river front and the river edge, to expand the opportunity for community access, picnicking, and river access on the Barbara Bennett side, rather than dedicated currently to a wall with parallel parking and roadway circulation. So that that was in the survey, that was kind of it was a little 50-50, and with the added benefits for circulation, for how well the park can be patrolled, how much more access it opens to the community. We thought that was the right move. A couple other things is keeping the amount of basketball. The previous concept C had only one had one basketball, and so it was not favorable. It had no tennis, that was not favorable. It had two-way circulation. Folks preferred the one-way circulation. It had added parking. Folks preferred, or this plan keeps parking equivalent to the current parking count. So kind of took some of the things that weren't favorable about C, some of the things that folks liked about A and B, and tried to create a hybrid that would balance the amenity space, also influence or really give back the river to the pedestrian realm, rather than it's currently being dominated by the automobile. So those are the main components, and kind of how we had to try and read what was favorable about each concept and come up with what we hope is the hybrid that folks are looking for in the design. So we're really excited about this design. I think it would be a signature park. It would be something that would draw people in, just like the elements that we were talking about in Wingfield with the new amphitheater. It would create a much improved visibility into the park, just like we did it opening it up at Wingfield. This would also not have these center areas of the park that are hard to see behind tennis court walls, and there's also walls next to the basketball, which would be removed. So a lot of those barriers to visibility that create kind of secluded areas that are hard to see, those are all opened up in this design. And so there's much greater natural surveillance, much greater actual physical ability to patrol and enforce within the park. And we think all those things would add to a park experience that would be beneficial to the city of Reno and everybody using these parks.
Excellent. Another thing, just as another point that Tony pointed out earlier, or Tony mentioned earlier, was that the idea on the shade canopies would be that they have a cohesive design between all of the parks. So I'm going to go back to the big master plan overall, that there's kind of a family of elements that relate to one another between the main amphitheater, these elements, this shade structure, and then these over the playground, so that it really will make a nice looking cohesive design.
Yeah. And there was one other particular with the roadway alignment I forgot to mention. Barb, if we could just go back to that plan real
Sure.
quick, which was in between keynotes D and E, kind of in the center of the park. There's a very large existing sycamore with a nesting
this one.
raptor in the top. And so the idea of being able to preserve that, a very special tree, which has habitat value and use by nesting raptors, was something that we went out of our way to kind of orient both the parking and the roadway alignment, to be able to preserve that within the existing park.
Excellent. Thank you for bringing that up. And here are just some images of what some of the amenities would look like in Barbara Bennett Park. Here's an image of Portland Loo, which many of you who may recognize this, that there's one on the East Truckee River now pathway east of the Auto Museum, and I think one's going in at the City Plaza. Here's just some reference imagery of some maybe themed playground structures that reference the river with fish and kind of aquatic vegetation. That's the kind of playground that could be put here in this location, as well as some other kind of naturalistic playground elements that maybe incorporate some salvage trees and wood. Here's an image of a dog park that could be where we could use like a natural DG surface inside. And then here's an image of a shade canopy over the playground structures. So that is the presentation of our all of our master plans. And now we do have a little time to take some questions before we move on to the live poll and the wrap up. So if you do have a question or anything you want to mention or talk about, you could raise your hand in the chat and Karina can unmute you and allow you to speak.
Hey, Barb, while we're waiting for those questions to come in, or the first person to raise their hand, can we go back to the plan? There's one more thing I wanted to point out on the basketball configuration. This basketball, full court basketball is what we have. 2 full court basketball tends to be dominated by older individuals and full court games. So this configuration keeps one for full court games, but also has 2 half court, which tend to be more usable by younger generations or people still building their skill sets. So it creates a more equitable distribution of like which age groups can use the basketball courts versus you got to be there for a pickup game and play competitive. So we think this configuration kind of balances out what is currently like kind of dominated by a single type of basketball experience. This could open it up to more users, people that are maybe not there to play competitively but still want to practice and skill build, parents with kids, or people just visiting that want to shoot around a little bit.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Dalton. So just one thing I wanted to mention, I neglected to mention this earlier, but we're also very lucky to be joined today by our Parks and Recreation Director, Nathan Oliot. So he's here, and I just wanted to recognize him and thank him for being here, and he can also help answer some questions. But first up, we have Brett Torvinen. Brett, you should receive a notification that allows you to speak. You might have to unmute, but there you are.
And I can go back to the plan just so that if people want to reference the plan,
Sure.
they can do that.
Brett, I see that you are unmuted, but we're not hearing any audio from you. I'm not sure if your microphone is working, but let me give you a moment. I'm going to go to the next person and then I will circle back and come back to you. So Jasmine, Taylor, you're next. You should receive a notification. Let me know.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Wow, well, this looks amazing. Thanks for the presentation. I am wondering if you have considered having adult-sized changing tables in any of the public restrooms for our community of individuals with disabilities and their caregivers.
Okay, Jasmine, thank you for that question.
I can answer. I can try to answer that question.
Cool.
It was Jasmine, I think. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. And it is something that we're working with our adaptive programming staff and our inclusion staff to try to start incorporating as soon as possible in our public spaces. Starting with the spaces like our adaptive cycling center. We're working to get funding to put one into that restroom, and then to start just checking off boxes as we go down into our facilities. But all of our new facilities that are built the Portland Loos don't have that capacity, but as we build new facilities and update facilities, there will be an adult changing table.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you very much. I recently, I won't spend too much time on this, but I recently joined a nationwide group for, it's called Changing Spaces Campaign. And so if there's ever an opportunity to work with you all, I've got a ton of resources on
Yeah.
and the like that I'd love to get some of that info in front of you guys.
So that'd be great, Jasmine. Again, we're trying to work on that in some of our, I guess, more specifically utilized spaces, but we need to start moving in that direction everywhere. So if you have resources that you can bring to bear that would help us, that'd be great. So Karina will send you my information, and please send me an email to connect.
Awesome. I will put my email, Karina, in the Q&A then.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank
And
you
I
both for your
will,
time.
I'll go ahead and share our director Nathan, his email address in the chat for everyone so that it's viewable in case you'd like to reach out to him to set up a meeting. But Jasmine, yes, please send it over and I'll make a note of that. Thank you for that comment.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, so Brett, I'm going to try to give you permission to speak again. Let's see if it works this time. Okay, so you should have the ability now. I see you unmuted.
Green, it looks like he's also typed in his questions if we want to just try
Oh.
it anyway.
That is great. Thank you so much for thinking of that. Dalton, I'm not seeing that. Could you please read that for us?
Yeah, the first one I'm seeing from Brett is not seeing the difference between half court and full court on the basketball. Maybe we can zoom in on that. Barb, yeah, there you go.
Thank you so much.
It's in the chat. I don't know if you can see, if you hover over the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A, and then you should be able to click that and scroll down and see the questions. So Brad, I'll try and answer your question. I don't know if I'm going to answer it correctly, but if in this closer view, you can see that the center area where yeah, there you go. Thanks, Barb. That's your full court basketball in the middle. And then each end shares a pole, and there's a half court basketball on each side. And then the next question is about, is there light for the courts in the works? Barb, will defer to you or Karina on that question.
I don't believe we have proposed actually separately lighting the courts. I mean, we are proposing to improve the overall park lighting here and replace the lighting with just upgraded pedestrian lighting. But at this time, we did not propose specifically lighting the courts.
That's right, Barb. I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so
was it for Brett's questions, I believe, so far?
yes, thank you so much, Brett, for typing those in. Next person that we have is Leah Sanders. I'm going to go ahead and give you permission to speak, and you'll probably have to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hi, I like everything that's been proposed. I think there's been a lot of thought and reflection in it, and I'm very excited to see the new Wingfield Park. My question is about the tower. I think it's exciting that people can view 360 degrees. I'm worried about light pollution from the top of it in our already overpolluted sky. And I think that any advertising up there may not comply with city sign ordinance. Have you worked with Scenic Nevada that is very conscious of signs and blockage of views from the ground? And hope that you will.
Jack or Tony, you want to take that one?
Jack, I think you're muted. You see your mouth moving, we
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
hear you.
As I say, it looks like Jack's answering, but
Jack's muted right now.
Okay, well, I think I
Okay.
can speak to that a little bit. I am aware of the sign ordinance. I think that's something that we need to look into, make sure that everything, you know, when we implement the tower, that it is compliant. I've made a note here to look into reaching out to Scenic Nevada, and yeah, I appreciate that perspective. I think that's a great comment, Leah. Something that I hadn't considered. I'm sure Jack may have, but me personally.
I think I'm unmuted now.
Yes, hello, Jack.
Sorry about that. Scenic Nevada, those guys are my heroes. I have worked with them before. We don't want this to become a billboard. The only advertising would be for maybe a city event, and it would have to be, you know, it'd have to meet any sort of sign ordinances. There could be some light pollution. We could mitigate that, I think, with working with the lighting designer. We don't want it to look like the Grand Sierra or that kind of a, that's the last thing I would want. So we would definitely work with Scenic Nevada.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great.
I wanted to acknowledge in the comments from or follow up to Brett's comment about lighting the courts. A separate attendee whose name is anonymous would like us to consider lighting the basketball courts because a lot of folks get off work late and would like to play after it's dark. Just wanted to get that
Okay.
into chat.
Thank you for that comment. We will make a note of that. Okay, does anyone else have any additional questions? I'm not seeing any more hands raised. And I just put in the information for our director. Okay, I'm not seeing
right.
any further comments.
Okay, well then we could move on to our poll. So we do have a short number of polling questions that we'd love it if you attendees would answer these. It would help us just kind of get a read on our proposed park improvements. So Karina, maybe you can explain how they're going to do that.
Yes, okay, so right now I'm launching the poll for Wingfield Park. It should appear as kind of a pop-up on your screen and it should be interactive, so you should be able to click in the responses. This first poll has 5 questions. The first question is, do you support the new band shell structure and stage with the removable restroom / green room? So only 2 options there, yes or no. And we should be seeing your results pour in as you answer that. So I see a few of you have started. Thank you so much. And you should also be able to scroll. I see that some of you have started doing that. There's an additional 4 questions. The second one is, do you support turf seating terraces? Yes or no? Question 3 is, do you support locating vendors and food trucks near Arlington Avenue? Question 4 is, do you support the observation tower? And then question 5 has multiple choices. It's, do you support the plan overall as presented? And there's strongly support, moderately support, neither support nor oppose, and do not support. So we have about a 52% participation rate. So I'll leave that up for a few minutes to, probably not a few minutes, maybe another minute, just to let those responses come in.
Looks like there's a hand up. We could maybe take that
Oh yeah,
question.
Christine. Okay, I will. Sorry, let me try to give you permission to.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. So no, I love everything about this, but my poll unfortunately went away, so I wasn't able to finish it.
Oh, no. I'm wondering if, let me see if I can relaunch the poll. 1 second.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, I see Leah. Um, 1 second. Okay, polls and quizzes. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll, and then I think from there I'm able to relaunch it. All right, did it? Oh, no. Okay. Christine, I'm gonna follow up with you after the meeting.
No,
And
that's
get,
absolutely fine.
okay, sorry about that. If
Oh,
I
no
do
worries.
relaunch it, it would delete everyone's
Yeah,
responses.
no, definitely don't want that to happen.
Let me share those results with you guys, so in case you're curious to see. So question 1, we got yes as the majority response. Question 2, also yes. Question 3, also a good response with yes. Mixed responses on the observation tower, not as resounding of a yes, but yes is still in the lead. And then question 5, we got strongly support as the leading answer and moderately support. So another thing I will mention is this recording will be made available on our website, and we will put the polling with that to accompany it, so we can get more feedback. All right, so thank you, Christine. I'm going to
There
now
was
go
a
to Leah. Leah, go ahead, see if you're able
Yeah,
to.
there was no place for me to put, I support an observation tower, maybe not so tall. But again, for me, it's the light pollution, the blocking of views from wherever, I don't know, because I can't tell. And there was no place to write a comment. So that's my comment.
Okay. I've noted that. Thank you so much, Leah.
Thank you.
Okay. Now I'm gonna go to Tina. Tina, go ahead and see if you're able to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question about the tower. Not whether it's good or bad, but it looks to me as if it's capable of vandalism. And I just brought up the issue, if we're comparing this to the tower that's in the museum in San Francisco, there's a lot of caution. Not everybody can go up that tower. You have to get into the museum to access it. And here, I would be very concerned about having it open all the time.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are.
Okay, I can answer that. They have changed that for the DeYoung since I've been there. It's been a few years. Used to could go up the tower. You did have to go past security, and then you could go to the tower without purchasing a ticket to the museum. That could have changed. I would not advocate for this thing being open 24 hours. I would not. It would have to be. You'd have to buy a ticket or have some way of securing it. You can't just open it up to the public. So maybe I misunderstood there. Maybe I misrepresented that. That would not be my intent. It would be something that you either swipe with your phone to have access to the tower, or there's an actual paid person there that has that you have to pay, or some sort of token to get up to the top of the tower.
Okay, and that concern makes me uncomfortable with fully supporting it, because the liability issues and the vandalism issues and the staffing issues are really high. Seem to be high. Just a concern.
Thank you
Okay.
so much for sharing that, Tina.
So my second thing is I know that pickleball is just huge, and your basketball courts seem to be full because I've seen pickleball on basketball courts, and I don't know how much use your tennis court gets, but making it available for pickleball might have some interest as well.
Yeah,
Thank you. Tina.
yeah, I think that if I didn't mention it, I did mean to say that the tennis court could also be used for pickleball in
Okay.
Barbara Bennett. So it could have this extra striping and capability of being used for pickleball for sure.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much for those comments, Tina. So now I'm gonna move on and I'm going to launch the second poll, which is for the Whitewater Park. This one is, one second. Am I sharing it already?
I do
Oh.
not see it.
Sorry, it's saying
We're still on
that
the Wingfield
the
poll.
results. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. So this one is it's just 3 questions. And one second, it's not letting me launch it. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that should bring up the Whitewater Park poll, just 3 questions. The first one is, do you support the new pedestrian bridge that would connect Wingfield on the west side to Barbara Bennett across the South Channel? Question 2 is, do you support adding a surf wave with a dedicated fish passage downstream of the Arlington Avenue Bridge? And then question 3 is, do you support the plan as it is presented? And again, this is specifically for the Whitewater Park elements, the ones that are highlighted in blue in the river.
Again, since there was one other comment while the poll's open, I'll just note that another anonymous attendee noted that more shade over the terraced seating facing the stage would be preferred. I'll note that we did consider that. You know, trees could be
Yeah.
planted, but the line of sight and views of the stage get blocked. So I'm not sure who made that comment. If you want to raise your hand and elaborate, but and structured shade also has the same concerns. It's going to introduce poles and line of sight issues. But shade over the terrace seating facing the stage is something that they'd like us to consider as we develop the plan further.
Yeah, just to elaborate, it is, currently, that is one of the strong aspects that people don't like about a couple of the obstructions at Wingfield. So at this point, we've kind of avoided showing anything that would have a pole that would obstruct your view to the amphitheater. If there's a way that we could consider incorporating it, definitely we could do that. Or maybe there's just more ways we could put some areas along the side so that if you really want to be under the shade, you could sit along the side here and we wouldn't have trees in the center area or shade structures, but you could find some shade along the edges might be the compromise.
Right. Thank you, Barb. And I'm seeing another raised hand from Peter Harvey. Peter, I'm going to give you permission to speak if you could unmute and share your comments.
Yeah, hi, Karina and Nathan and everybody. Thanks for all the work you've done on this project. It all looks great. And Jake, sorry, Jake, didn't mean to skip you. Since we're talking about the Whitewater Park, I would be interested to hear from Jake what the difference between the new Number two, that's being done for RTC because of the Arlington Bridge versus this new surf structure downstream and what's currently 5. The differences, and I would also hope that more areas of the park will be dredged than what's showing on this, because certainly the South Channel has a lot of sediment in it that could be the whole area could be improved if it was just dredged out. And then unrelated to the Whitewater Park, I'm hoping that the seating in the amphitheater, I like the idea, but I'm hoping it isn't something that we have to live with for the other 8 months out of the year. If it's great for the 4 months that they're performing, but it can't be an obstruction for use as an open space or crossing the park the rest of the year. Thanks very much for any feedback.
Yeah, Peter, good to hear from you. Thanks. As you know, the drop at the bottom of the park is the full river flow, right? So that's the difference. Is that can be a bigger and more powerful wave. And as we've seen elsewhere, you can't build enough of these. I'm in Canyon City, Colorado right now, and the local paddling group is trying to convert almost all of their freestyle holes into surf waves. So, yeah, there's no such thing as too many standing waves is kind of what we're seeing.
Okay, so they'd both be standing waves, all Montrose or Salida.
Yeah, similar to like a Salida Scout wave.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. All right, so we have one final poll also with 3 questions, and this one, it touches on the Barbara Bennett portion of the master plan. So I'm launching that now. If you guys could please note your responses. Tina, I see your hand raised again. Go ahead and unmute. Oh, sorry about that.
I guess, first of all, I guess when I looked at your Idlewild Park, it looked to me as if the entire goal was to serve the 2 months that the public is using that park. And I too have questions about the amphitheater having the cement seating, although that would help a lot of us not bring chairs during that time. But my big concern, and I have expressed it to all of you before, is my concern about wildlife, and in particular ducks, invertebrates, and fish, whether there's going to be room for anything else but recreation that is not good for wildlife. And I have not seen that addressed in any of the parks that you have, park plans that you have developed. Any sense of responsibility to them, and taking out lower branches out of trees so that you have more security. What is the impact of that on bird life, rabbits, and other species? Does the City of Reno have any obligation to help protect wildlife? So I think, I mean, a lot of this is really nice, but it's indifferent at best to wildlife and increasingly anti-wildlife. So I am not answering your polls as much because I feel that a lot of issues were not addressed. Those issues are not addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina.
I want to address part of that questions that you asked, Tina, or comments that you made. And that's because I'm realizing that I neglected to even talk about one aspect of the master plan, which is basically our tree plan. So we are showing in this overall plan, we've got a legend that shows existing trees to remain. We've got new trees that are going to be planted with the Arlington Avenue Bridge project that are primarily along Arlington Avenue, but there are a couple of new ones that will be put in place with that project. But we do recognize that this is a island in the river and that we need to perpetuate the trees that we have. I do think there have been quite a few trees lost over the years. And as a person who literally goes to this park all summer long and to so many special events, I think that we've lost a lot of trees in this island here. And I know, having worked on the Arlington Avenue bridges, that there are some old cottonwoods that are really at the end of their lifespan. So we are proposing to have a plan to replenish the trees that are being lost just due to age in here. And that's what some of these lighter green circles are. So I can't say that I can't say, to be totally honest with you, that that was 100% thought of for wildlife, but it is partially because I recognize that, you know, the fisheries here need shade to thrive. And so we really have proposed quite a few new trees along the edges of the river and also within the park. And as Dalton mentioned, he has, you know, been aware of this large sycamore tree that actually has a nest, a raptor nest, it looks like, in it that he's kept, and also lots of trees over in this area. So I really appreciate your comment. And I think, you know, that's a valid point that we can do more to kind of think about just the type of landscaping that goes back here that would help attract wildlife. I actually have a photo of a green heron that I've seen down here walking along the river that had a nest, I think, right in this island that it lives right in this area. So I would also mention, though, to you that having worked on Arlington Avenue Bridge project, there's some strict requirements for replacing trees in the Truckee River. And believe it or not, like the cottonwoods are kind of a target by the, trying to remember the agency that has purview over some of the plantings in the Truckee River, but they literally will only allow like a 1-for-1 replacement of cottonwood trees. And the reason for that is that when the cottonwoods trees are weaker wooded, and if they fall over or break in a flood and they go downstream, then sometimes they get caught up on the bridges and there are a lot of issues with removing them. So like, for example, there was one cottonwood that needed to be removed here for the Arlington Avenue Bridge project, and I proposed putting several more back in its place and was told, no, you can't do that. You can put other species in, though, just not a lot of cottonwoods. So, but yeah, that I appreciate that comment because we do plan to have a tree replenishment program as part of the master plan and talk about that.
Yeah, I think I would also appreciate the comment and would add that although we haven't specified tree species yet, in the final master plan, we can make note of the tree species selection. You know, the ones that we do select, both having the variety of canopies, the variety of sizes and scales for different species, and give a special preference for tree species that can and do support, are known to support wildlife. And making sure that those are, you know, strategically located. Right now we have different colors of green circles, but as we get into further in from concept plan into preferred plan and further down the road, that that note will make it into the record as something that'll be part of the design development of the park. So we thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I realized I was also remiss. I did not touch on their low flow fish passages is one of our numbers there as well.
Right.
So is there dedicated fish passage channels at low flow that are very naturalized and rough? They're not these engineered fish passages that you see at dams a lot of times. And additionally, dredging the channels provides a lot more of that deep pool habitat that's great for fish. And we see amazing fish habitat even among these recreational structures.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Tina. All right.
Did we see the results on the second survey, Corinne?
Oh, sorry.
I was
Yes, so
curious.
here are the results for the Whitewater Park poll. Question 1, 79% responded yes. Question 2 had an 85% response indicating yes. And then question 3, 57% strongly support, 29 moderately support, and then there's 2 respondents who indicated that they neither support nor oppose. Sorry, I thought I was I thought I was sharing those results with you, but I guess I just did it verbally. But here is a look at the Barbara Bennett poll. We had 90% yes support for removing the flood wall and providing the bouldered rivered edge. And then on question 2, it's pretty split. Group picnic shelters came in as kind of the top answer with 80%. And then the dog park came in last with only 30% support. And then for question 3, we have kind of a mixed bag here. 44% strongly support, 33% moderately support, 11% neither support nor oppose, and then 11% do not support. So thank you all. As I mentioned, a recording of this meeting will be available for anyone who was not able to attend, and it will be accompanied by a form that you can fill out with these questions so that we can gather some additional input on these. And I will make a comment box available so that comments that don't pertain to these questions can also be captured. But thank you so much for your time today and for joining us. This is we're excited about this project and these parks and making them, you know, a great place to be and to visit downtown. And Barb, I'll let you touch on the timeline and what's next.
Okay. So this shows some of the activities that have already occurred, starting with our Ward 1 NAB meeting, going through our first public survey, master plan, or public workshop 1 a year ago, survey, master plan, preliminary master plan and stakeholder input, and now we're at public workshop 2. And now from here on, we will use this input to develop the final master plan, which we'll work on starting now, basically. And then we will schedule that to be heard at the Reno Rec and Parks Commission. Not quite sure yet if that'll be December or January.
It'll be, sorry, Barb, they're dark in December, so it'll be in January.
It'll be January. Okay, thank you. And then there would be an update given to City Council at some point after that. So yeah, we're nearing the end of the process, and I really appreciate your participation. It's super valuable for us, and you know, really look to your input to make improvements on our master plan overall. It's very important for our whole team. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And please be on the lookout on our website, reno.gov, the Parks and Recreation page. That's where we will post the recording and the link to provide feedback on this. So really your feedback is invaluable, and we thank you for being here and taking time out of your night. I hope you all enjoy your evenings.
Thanks, Karina. Thanks, Barb.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, everyone.
So, thanks, Nathan.